Okay, good morning. So I'm just about down to the harbor. I'll turn it around, you can see it. And there's a building that's been torn down and they're building a new one back there. You can see the aircraft carrier Midway, number 41. And then you can just get a hint of the boats and the pier in front of us. And a great big international hotel here. There we go. So what I'm going to be talking about today is people have asked me to talk about myself. Okay, I gotta laugh because those of you who know me know that's my favorite indoor sport, talking about myself. So, or just talking in general, but talking about myself is right up there, probably at the top. So, of course, it's a little bit embarrassing, and I shouldn't do it, but what the heck? I'm 70. What are you gonna do? So, here's the deal. For 24 years now, as of this month, I've been doing the MGB. And during that time, we have a manual and all this stuff and a diet. And generally for the diet for, 20 plus years, I recommended basically a Mediterranean type diet. Mostly healthy foods, not so much steak and junk food. And I still think that's a pretty good, simple recommendation to be healthy. But some things changed, and I'm a little bit more, radical in advising a healthier diet with a little bit more fresh fruits and vegetables and whole grains, and a little bit less of what we hear from a lot of people that I, hopefully in a loving, friendly way, call goofy, is they say, eat a lot of fat and protein, and that'll make you thin. Right. Okay, so I'm too heavy. That's too much fat. And the solution is to eat more fat or high protein foods, most of which are high fat. And that means I will lose a lot of fat because I'm fat and I want to lose fat, so I'll eat more fat. Okay, well, we agree sugar's bad, but that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And anyways, but I wasn't opposed to it, and actually kind of got into it for a while, and I noticed that I was, not surprisingly, getting fat. So my history was I was always pretty skinny, but in the past, I say 10 years or so, I started to get a pot belly. So I was still skinny, but I had a pot belly. You've probably seen men like this, like everywhere, except on TV. And anyways, I was disappointed, and gradually my waist increased so that I was wearing 38 pants, and they were tight. So when I would try on pants that I thought were fit well, I was surprised to see that they were 40-inch waist. And I had gotten up to anywhere between 185 to 190 pounds, so I could see 200 pounds from where I was. And I was disappointed by it, and so I wasn't exercising as much, and then I had some life experience changes, so I'm going to talk about that. So I have to begin talking about my trip to India by here recognizing and thanking my hosts, Dr. Kular and Dr. Magenda. So to go back before that a little bit, I was getting ready to stop traveling and teaching the MGB. Because although there are still countries, United States, that can't figure out that the MGB is a good operation, United States, American Society of Not Very Smart Bariatric Surgeons, no, I didn't say that. I didn't mean that. They're very smart. They just can't figure out that the MGB is a Bill Roth 2, which has been done for 150 years, and they still are not sure it's a good operation. So that's okay. Where was I? So anyways, I traveled around the world. I've been, every continent except Antarctica to teach MGB. And the MGB is taking off, for example, in countries where they keep track of it, like Israel and India. The rate of Roux-en-Y gastric bypass has dropped into the few percentage points. And sleeve is really popular, but in Israel they saw something interesting in that the popularity of the sleeve has begun to decline precipitously. and somewhat following the course of the lap band. So if you remember the lap band, it was really popular, and I said it was going to be a failure, and many years before it was generally declared a failure. But it's a failure. And so sleeve is popular right now, and it's more effective than the band, but a recent study by Dr. Prager in the Czech Republic showed that in his carefully monitored series, half of his sleeves had to have another operation. So other than a 50% failure rate, sleeve is pretty good. So is a high protein, high fat diet for a short term. Anyways, so I had traveled around the world, and I thought I had done pretty well. And, the rest of the world is kind of catching up. More and more MGBs are being done, more reported. The number of published articles on the MGB is skyrocketing, increasing exponentially. So I was going to get back to being a local general surgeon and bariatric surgeon in the United States. And I had an arrangement with a hospital, and everything was looking good. And when I was doing my credentialing, they said, we need your general surgery cases for the past couple years. And I said, okay, I've been all over the world. I'm a recognized expert, and I teach and perform the mini gastric bypass, and I can give you all kinds of references and information on that. They said, okay, how many appendectomies have you done? And I said, well, none in 20 years. And they said, okay, what about gallbladders? I said, none in 20 years. And so they go, oh, well, our credentialing rules are you have to do some general surgery. So I said, okay, I'll go to another country, and I'll work there under their training and do some general surgery cases, whatever number you want. And Dr. Kular is head of the hospital, and the administrator, he said, yes, we can have you in as a junior trainee, which was fun. So I made arrangements, and after Christmas of 2019 and 2020, the yearly Obesity Surgery Society of India was having its meeting the 1st of February, and I was invited to go over, and I said I would spend, several months there in training with Dr. Kular's hospital and his educational team, and would participate with him and the other surgeons at the hospital there in some general surgery cases until we could meet the appropriate local criteria. So I made arrangements and flew to India in the early part of 2020. Now, those of you who are aware of what happened in 2020, there was a new virus that they recognized. And in preparation for the meeting, I sent some messages saying, there's this new virus. Maybe we shouldn't shake hands or things like that. And generally that was met with a lot of laughter. And anyways, we had the meeting. It was great. And that was followed by an invitation to go to other cities in India, do some more training and things like that. But what happened was, pandemic. Now my hosts had a problem on their hands. Me. So Dr. Kular and Dr. Magenda treated me with just tremendous kindness. They said, during the pandemic, we'll allow you to stay here on the hospital grounds. And for the next year, they hosted me in India. Now, I can never thank them enough. So to Dr. Kular and Dr. Magenda, if you get to see this, as I told you the other night, I'm eternally in your debt. Anything I can ever do for you for the rest of my life, I thank you. You saved my life and basically provided me with a place to live, kindness and support for an entire year. And those of you who know me would realize that's asking a lot. But we did have a lot of fun there, and we've come up with some research, some new operation techniques, things like that. So hopefully it's a benefit. But so I was stuck in India then. So and they also said something else, which is, in a gentle way, they said, you're old. I said, no, I'm not. And they said, you're 70. I said, yeah, But so they said that because I was 70, I was high risk, and so I shouldn't be in the operating room. I said, that's what I do. And they said, but you're 70. So anyways, I had a year in India, not in the operating room. So what could I do? Well, first of all, as a side description, I had an inguinal hernia. And it had bothered me for a while, but I hadn't done anything about it. But I mentioned to them, I said, what if while I'm here, what if we go ahead and fix my hernia? I said, that would be great. And so they did a laparoscopic hernia repair spectacularly well, and it's worked terrifically. And of course, he and Dr. Magenda are superb surgeons, so it did terrific. But after a day or two, they said, we need to meet with you to talk about our findings at the time of surgery. And I said, oh, cancer? He goes, no, but we just want to talk to you. So we met, and what they said is they found when they operated, even though I'm overall a kind of reasonably skinny person, what they found was that I had lots of visceral fat. And then when they said it, I said, lots of visceral fat. They said, no, lots of visceral fat. And for those of you who are civilians, that just means belly fat. And it doesn't mean exactly fat under the skin, which you could have, but it's also called visceral fat because it's inside and it covers and surrounds the organs of the abdomen. So what happens then is the fat can accumulate either underneath the skin or in the abdomen around the liver and the other organs. And that is much more deadly and much more dangerous. So you can have a heart attack and stroke and death and dementia much more commonly with visceral fat than you can with subcutaneous fat. So I got this news, and at the same time, two other things were happening. We'll come back to the visceral fat in a minute. So as I said, I wasn't operating, so I had a survey of patients who'd had the MGB. It was a little over 3,000 people, and so I thought, I'll take some time now and analyze that data. And we actually found some results of that, and we submitted it, and we found some very new things, and the reviewer said, this doesn't have anything new, and they rejected it. So anyways, that's another story. But so I was reviewing the data from my 3,000 person survey, and there's a lot of things in there that I could talk about, but there's one set of findings that are particularly related to my present discussion, and that is me and the change in diet recommendations that I have for my patients. So one of the things we did is a food recollection questionnaire, and that's very simple and very non-specific, but we ask a couple of questions about the MGB patient's pre- and post-operative diet. So now when you ask people questions, a lot of times they fib. They misremember. And so a questionnaire can be invalid. So the first thing we're going to talk about, was this questionnaire valid? Did it actually match up with what makes sense in reality? So what we did is we said, how many servings per day do you have of different foods? And I'm not going to go into all the detail, but one of the three things we asked was how many sugar sweetened beverages, Diet Coke, things like that, do you have per day? And then we asked how many kind of servings of relatively fatty foods. We said French fries and eggs and different things like that. And then we asked how many servings of meat per day, and then how many servings of fresh fruits and vegetables per day. Okay? So what that meant is that we could get an opinion of people's preoperative reported dietary intake. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to tell you, you're not going to be surprised about, but it shows that the questionnaire has high validity. Okay, so what we mean there is that when we analyze the data, the preoperative weight, the weight of people when they came to see us, was directly related to those reported servings per day. So let me say that a couple of times. In other words, people who said they drank more Coke were heavier when they came to see us. I know, duh. I know, I get it, but just stay with me for a second. If you reported on this survey you drank more Cokes per day, you were heavier when you came to see me. And if you ate more fatty food, more French fries and things like that, you're heavier when you come to see me. I know, just relax for a second, let me tell you. But also the number of servings of meat. So if you eat more meat per day, according to the survey, that meant you were heavier pre-op. But the other thing is we can say how tightly those two variables are related. And the number was extremely close, so that every time that somebody said they ate a little bit more sugar-sweetened beverages, fatty food servings, or meat, like a razor, their weight went up when they come to see us. It was just a direct, absolute, perfect correlation. Okay, well, so what? Everybody knows that. Well, what it means is that what they're saying on the survey seems very much to match reality and common sense, suggesting that their reported dietary intake matches what's probably actual dietary intake. And because, many people fib. But what we saw on the survey, what they said matches what we would predict. Seems like they were telling the truth very, very precisely compared to their actual weight. Okay, so that's all an introduction and you don't care about it, but it means our survey has a chance of being powerful and accurate. Okay, so then we looked at their post-op reported sugar-sweetened beverages, fatty food intake, and meat intake. Okay, now before I tell you about that, I'm going to tell you that what we looked at post-op is also how much of the bowel I bypassed. Okay, so let me tell you, the more I bypassed, the more weight people lost. Okay, like a razor again. In other words, longer bypass means more weight loss. Again, a lot of people who do the MGB can't figure this out or disagree with it, but in my study, in my experience, and those surgeons who have worked with me and perform it the way I do, we can tailor the bypass to the weight of the patient and how much they want to lose. So again, this survey had this information for me to read and review. Then, next, we looked at weight loss based on their post-operative diets. Okay, so what we found is that people lost more weight if they drank less Coke post-op. Good. People lost more weight if they ate less fatty food post-op, not more fatty food. So back to our introduction, there are some, keto, high-fat diet people. They said eat more fat. Nope. In my series, like a razor, it's absolutely clear. Every time you have one less serving of fatty food per day, you lose weight. Okay? But now the third and most interesting topic for me was we looked at their reported number of meat servings per day. So each serving of meat, as they reported one less per day, they had more weight loss. So less meat, more weight loss. Less sugar, less weight loss. Less fat, more weight loss. So let me say that again. I mixed it up and I apologize. So less sugary drinks, more weight loss. Less fatty foods, hello keto people, more weight loss. Less meat, more weight loss. So again, less meat, more weight loss. So we try to control it. We use the multivariate regression and things like that. And it turns out one of the most powerful predictors is how much meat people ate. Well, that makes sense because meat's high in fat and high in salt. And anyways, I had that information. I had my own surgery with a relatively high amount of visceral fat, and I had nothing to do. So the third part of this was that I started calling people on the internet, and actually got thrown off several Facebook pages because they said, who's this creepy guy asking you to call him. So they said, get him off of our site because this is weird. So my apologies to anybody because I didn't know how to use the internet and Facebook. But a lot of people would have complaints or problems with their surgery. And another talk one day we can go over, if there's interest in this one, is to talk about reflux. But today we're going to talk about weight. And so I started talking to people who were having either the MGB or the sleeve and had trouble with inadequate weight loss or weight regain. Okay, so two common problems. And I would talk to them at the beginning of the year, and I would do about an hour online consultation. And I would ask them usually about 50 questions, basically about their lifestyle. When do you go to sleep? When do you wake up? When do you eat? What do you eat? And throughout the day. So I would listen to people, and I started hearing the same thing. And at the beginning, I would say, well, not really sure, don't have a lot of good ideas. But one of the first things I said is, well, let's just get rid of everything and try and start over. And I didn't really have a lot of knowledge or anything, but just let's get rid of everything. And I said, I have this research that says eating meat is not a good choice. And so I said, lose all the meat, just for a month, because it can't hurt you to be without meat and hamburgers for a month. But I said, try it without meat for a month, and let's get rid of fatty foods. And of course, you don't want to be eating a lot of sugar. So I just said, I have this data. It's my own experience, and I'm going to try doing this as well. In other words, the idea here is simple. Why don't I try and eat a little bit healthier, but in particular, a little different than, say, the Mediterranean type diet, a lot different than kind of keto or high fat or high protein diet. Let's just lose everything for a month, see how we do. And up till now, I've talked to about 350 people. And we start off the month and we say, okay, they say, what can I eat for breakfast and this and that. And then the other thing is, I have another couple of talks about when you eat, how you eat. And I'm not going to do all of that today. But in short, I put people on 6 small meals a day and eating mostly healthy foods. And then there was something else brand new that happened in February. Okay, this is a little bit long and complicated, and I'll do it in another talk. But they came out with an injection of a drug which is a GLP-1 agonist that's affecting the hormone called GLP-1, which is a glucagon-like peptide. And it acts like glucagon, and it decreases your hunger. And people who get this increased hunger hormone activation lose about 15% of their body weight if they inject themselves with the drug for once a week for a year. So that's really good body weight loss. And if you could lose somewhere between 10 and 20% of your body weight, that would be cool. And so in my advice to my patients, I pointed out something that a lot of people know and a lot of people don't know, which is if you eat fiber, the fiber is not digested by us. We can't, as humans, digest fiber. We're not a cow. Okay? So the fiber goes in, it's not digested, it goes down to the colon bacteria. Long story, I'm going to shorten it. And it is digested and causes a release of short-chain fatty acids, which increase GLP-1. So let me go over this again. You could pay $10,000 a year for these new drugs, expect a reasonable chance of an average of 15% weight loss, and if you stop it, your weight will come back. So it's $10,000 a year forever, unless you can convince your insurance company to pay for that. Or you could eat some fiber, and so I started with magic oatmeal, because oatmeal has a lot of fiber in it, not instant oatmeal, not processed oatmeal, but relatively unprocessed steel-cut oats or groats. Again, long story, I'm not going to go into it all detail, but when you eat that, there's a lot of fiber. A lot of fiber goes down into the colon, and it releases GLP-1. What? In other words, the actual hormone, not a hormone-like drug, but the actual hormone, GLP-1, and another good anti-hunger hormone, PYY, go up when you eat oatmeal. So I began the semi-ridiculous sounding advice to eat magic oatmeal for breakfast. And there's a lot more detail to it, but in short, I recommended you eat mostly fresh fruits and vegetables. And then on top of the fresh fruits and vegetables, go ahead and add something to that, which is begin the day with magic oatmeal. And then I recommended do that for a month. It's not forever, but do that for a month and see what happens. So I started that in February and March of 2020. And as I say, now about 350, I think it's up now getting close to 370 people have tried it. And the ones who have contacted me back say remarkable improvements. And you can follow this experience with patients online. So what I'm doing now for myself is eating that way. Not because I'm smart, but because I looked at a bunch of data, talked to a bunch of patients, and they had good results. So now what am I doing? Well, in February of 2020, I'm about 5'10", 5'11". In my mind, I'm 6 feet tall, but not so much with when I measure it, but in my mind. But so say 5'11", and my weight last year fluctuated between 180, 185. And now, after eating that kind of unusual-ish diet, which is simple, it's just mostly fresh fruits and fresh vegetables and cooked vegetables and whole grains, I've lost around 40 pounds. So I'm around 145, 150 now. And my waist size in pants is around 30, down 10 inches from 40. Now, I say 30. Some 30s are tight, but I don't care. But I did take some pants that were 32s to a alterationist, and the alterationist said I need to take these in. And I said, really? I said, how much? He said, about 2 inches. So anyways, I've been telling everybody that I wear size 30 jeans. I think mostly truthfully-ish, depending on the jeans and the cut. But anyway, so my patient experiences and my own personal experience is that by changing my diet, I've lost, 40, not a quarter of my body weight, maybe 20% of my body weight, which is pretty cool. In addition, I've also have to give credit that I'm doing a lot more exercise. But when I talk to my patients and when I talk to my post-op patients, I recommend this type of diet. So that's my own experience. And I'll go ahead and stop there, and feel free to contact me. And if you want more information, the online consultation in detail takes about an hour. It's worth doing it even more than once. And I charge quite a fee. It's $0. And I make a personal request if you want to write down to others what's happened when you try it and let them know whether or not I was right or wrong. And but if you're wrong, you might want to call me, because it's possible that you haven't done it right. But it's also possible I'm wrong. Although I'm a man and a doctor and a surgeon, we don't ever think we're wrong. Anyways, so I'm just on my walk. We're passing the yachts in the morning. So I'll show you, these are the yachts this morning here. And give you a couple of other views, and then we'll see if there's any other questions. Okay, hang on, we're just getting by the yachts, and I'll give you a view. Okay, so this is the Hilton. About 20 years ago I stayed here. And okay, here's the bridge to Coronado Island.